Welcome back to 101 East. Here's Nick Lazaridis with more on the controversial work of Chinese scientists trying to find a cure for one of the world's most deadly diseases, malaria.
While the Chinese team haven't published any results yet, they're still collecting data and trying to stamp out the final traces of malaria on Moeli.
1 hour the person stay in their house here, right? 1 hour stay outside,
Okay.
like this.
So they get mosquitoes from inside
And outside, yeah.
Okay. I've joined them at night as they travel around almost every village on the island collecting mosquitoes from volunteers who wait to get bitten.
If the mosquito is here, the person he know the mosquito is here, and he take it like this, and they will use some cotton and to keep here.
They're looking for the type of mosquito called Anopheles, the only species to transmit malaria.
Anopheles. Correct. In total, I have taken 12 mosquitoes and four of them Anopheles.
Village by village, night after night, the Chinese are hoping that their painstaking efforts will satisfy the meticulous standards of Western scientists.
These results will be very scientific, very exact compared.
So this should be quite acceptable result for the World Health Organization.
I hope so.
The catalyst for this East-West division came when the WHO learned of their plans to use artemisinin en masse in the Comoros.
Because it was a new technique, many experts were doubtful when it was first introduced. To them, it would be impossible to eradicate malaria. They thought that could only be an illusion, a dream.
One of the WHO's biggest concerns was that artemisinin's use in a mass campaign might lead to the emergence of a resistant strain of the disease. And that would mean the best anti-malarial known to man would be lost forever.
They agreed that artemisinin was a very good drug, but because it was such an excellent drug, it couldn't be used in Africa as the frontline drug. If the best drug was used, what would be left for them to do?
Is there a concern that this drug that they're using, that there could be some resistance problem, or is that not an issue with this drug?
Myself, I am a little concerned because the strategy is at the starting point, they will give a full treatment. After it will be a prevention, which means that there is a minimal dosage. And with all the drugs in the world, when you have a minimal dosage, there is a risk, I am not sure, but there is a risk that there will be a resistance.
While it's quick to criticise, the WHO itself is far from blameless when it comes to malaria resistance. In 2004, almost a dozen of the world's leading malaria scientists wrote a stinging article. In it, they accused the WHO of approving cheap medicines that were increasingly ineffective, allowing drug-resistant malaria to thrive. With their competency under fire, there was a swift response.
It was a very helpful wake-up call.
At the time, Sir Richard Feacham was head of the Global Fund, the world's single biggest financer for efforts to fight malaria. The fund was also accused of complicity in the monotherapy scandal, but Feacham says it was an important turning point towards combination therapy.
In a very short period of time, something like 80 countries changed policies, made new requests to the Global Fund, and the world changed very rapidly. I mean, I've never known it in my history of international public health, such a rapid, large-scale shift from one kind of treatment to another kind of treatment.
Despite the West's mistakes just a few years ago, Sir Richard cuts the Chinese little slack. He says until their results are published in scientific journals, their claims are worthless.
There are reasonable standards of evidence in the medical and public health world, and they're important standards because they protect the public from dangerous or hurtful things being done to them in the name of science or medicine.
Professor Sung says it's a typical response from Western scientists.
During our artemisinin in research, we embark on a bumpy road in our international exchanges. You may say that we've suffered many setbacks. They didn't believe whatever we said. No one believed us. Even if we had done a great job, they still didn't believe us. The reason is that many of them look down upon us Chinese.
But back in the village of Wanani, no one is looking down on the Chinese efforts. Here, the scientists are guests of honour, and the Comorians are giving Islamic prayers of thanks for eradicating malaria from the village. But there's one more gift in store for these poor villagers. The Chinese have paid for water to be piped up the mountain and into the village. It's a sign of their long-term commitment here.
The Chinese government genuinely wants to do some practical things for the people of Africa.
China's ambassador to the Comoros, Tao Wang, is among today's guests. He says China's growing role in Africa is viewed with suspicion in the West, and that's fueling the criticism of the malaria team's achievements.
They don't want to see China developing and growing. They don't want to see China having a big impact in Africa or other countries. They even fear that China's growth and increasing impact may affect the influence they currently have in African countries.
But the world's malaria experts insist that no one has closed the door on the Chinese efforts. In fact, in a sign that augurs well, Sir Richard Feacham has agreed to fund the translation of thousands of pages of Chinese research into English.
We have indeed had up to now an inadequate communication caused by language, very easy to understand, and we're certainly very committed to bridging that, because we are absolutely convinced that there is a wealth of evidence and knowledge in China that the rest of the world can benefit from.
While Feacham is taking tentative steps to bridging the gap, so too are the Chinese. They expect to publish their results in a Western journal soon, and they're hoping their approach will be vindicated, saving millions of lives and earning the people of Moeli a place in history.
We hope and we request that governments, organizations and people around the world will all join in this great cause of eradicating malaria. It's a sacred cause. It's a cause that will benefit future generations.
And that's it for this edition of 101 East. From all the team, thanks for watching.